Everybody, we're moving on. We wrapped up our last presentation with an overview of what this profile assignment was going to look like, some of the goals of it, some of the things to be concerned with as you draw ideas together. Now I'm going to focus on the actual process of pulling this essay together, beginning with a few comments on the interview process. One of the key sources of information for this profile will be interviews, at least one, possibly more. At the very least, you should interview the person that you're going to be writing about. Now, the suggestions here are useful. I've also provided a link in this same resource folder to a great article from Forbes magazine with tips on interviewing. And the key really is to go prepared, to try to note down anything that stands out as especially quotable, to try to make sure you get all the information correct as you're making notes, as you're talking to somebody. If they'll let you record them, that's usually the best way to go. But also to be flexible. Come with questions prepared. Come with some background work done, so you kind of know what to expect from your interviewee. But if they take the conversation into a tangent, you want to control that somewhat. You don't want to waste your interview time talking about unrelated things, but give them a little bit of play, because a lot of times the stuff that you don't expect will be the most interesting and the most exciting. You can only do so much background. People will surprise you with what they'll come up with. There are also other maybe opportunity to interview others who know this person. So it'll depend a little bit. Let's say you're writing about a friend who is a community organizer, and you want to show the power that one person can have in the community if he or she is dedicated. Well, you interview your friend, and she's humble, and she says, well, I'm just doing what anyone else would do, whatever. But you also want to get a sense of what the people whose lives she's touched feel about her. So you might interview a co-worker, a fellow volunteer. You might interview somebody who she's actually benefited directly. So be conscious of that. The SlideShare PowerPoint has a list of possible questions, and I'll go over them. I won't really go over them, but I'll touch on them really quickly here. The key really is you generate the questions to which you want the answers in advance, but then you also be prepared to prompt your interviewee as they answer the questions. People don't always interview well, and so you might ask a question and get a 1 or 2 word answer. Well, then be prepared to follow up. Well, what happened next? How did you feel about that? What did they do? To make sure you really get what you need out of that interview. Okay, so here are we going. Here are sample questions. Of course, you don't want to just generate these questions. It's really going to depend on what you want from that profile, what you think your frame is going to be, and that's not a bad idea to have an idea going in, what you want to do with that interview in the final essay. That said, throughout this process, you need to be open to changing all of that if something surprising happens. So you think you're going to go in and write about the difference one person can make in a community, but when you begin interviewing your subject and her coworkers, you start to realize maybe this person's personal life has fallen to pieces because of the work that they've done. So then your profile becomes more about the sacrifice. Or even you might discover that the person does it for the wrong reasons. Maybe it makes them feel important or whatever. That may become the focus of your profile, though you probably wouldn't want to show that to the person afterwards if they're a good friend. So at any rate, here are the questions. Review them for ideas about what to include in your questions. Don't just steal them, because chances are they're too generic, they're too broad. It really will depend what your goal is in writing your profile. Knowing when it's a good interview, this is fantastic. These are this slide is extremely useful, extremely helpful, and again, this is why I've used the Pearson slides, because I think they've done a wonderful job of doing what a PowerPoint can do, which is pulling out the main ideas and presenting them visually. Here's the stuff you want to look for in your notes after the interview, and this will tell you you've gotten what you need. Anecdotes, stories, specific things. And the reason is the narrative is at the heart of your profile, as it was at the heart of the personal essay. You're telling someone's story, right? So anecdotes are extremely important. Memorable quotations, just 1 or 2 great quotes from that person, things that they said that only they could have said. And that's the key. This is going to be the same when you use sources from books and magazines as well. You only want a direct quote when there's a reason for the direct quote. In other words, the language of that quotation stands out somehow. Otherwise, you should usually paraphrase, put what someone says in your own words, put what your source says in your own words, so it flows nicely with the rest of your essay. When you quote, you want to get the most bang for your buck. You do want quotes, but you want to make sure they're powerful quotes. Make sure you've got all the relevant background information you need. Now, again, if you know information already, if you know someone's age, for example, don't ask their age. If you know where they were born, don't ask that. You can get that information elsewhere. Don't waste someone's time with questions to which you should know the answer if you've done a little bit of research. Finally, the feelings. Get a sense for what this person really thinks, really feels. Be attuned to the moments when the person is talking about something that moves him or her deeply. That's something you want to focus on, even if you don't pull a quote from that moment. If you're writing about this person and you get a sense for what that person's passionate about, even if it surprises you, that belongs in your profile. That's important. You're writing about this person. That's important to that person. What should your profile essay ultimately do? It should answer this question: why am I looking at this person? Why am I trying to understand this person? Why am I talking about this person? The little funnel through which you're dumping all these bits and pieces to produce that result is useful because it shows you the sorts of specifics. I will always bug you with show, don't tell, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. In other words, include specifics, don't just tell me generalities. These are the kinds of specifics you want in a profile essay. Anecdotes, stories, dialogue, and then specific rich details, including a description of the person, a description or capturing vivid descriptions they may give you. The more details, the more your reader will connect with your writing. The sketch for this, and again we did a sketch for the profile as well, for the personal essay as well. The sketch is it's something between an outline and a rough draft. It's just a way to get out your main ideas, to try to get it on paper, so you can look at it, your peers can look at it if you like, I can look at it. Just sort of give a quick treatment of what you gathered for the sketch already. And the goal is really to test your idea to see if it's worth developing into a draft. The reason this is important is once you've written a rough draft, it's very hard to step back, dump it, and begin again. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes the idea you begin with isn't a good idea. The sketch saves you a lot of work. You throw your initial ideas on paper, kick the tires, see if this is the person you want to write about, or if the frame you've chosen is the right frame. If it is, then flesh it out into a full draft. Okay. What elements should you include in the sketch? The list is here, and I won't go over them. It'll be in the text as well, and in the slide share presentation. Try to pull all these things together, because this will really give you enough to get a sense of whether or not this is worth developing. One thing to be conscious of in the sketch and in the draft is that strong lead. You want to hook readers in at the beginning. So think of what's going to get them interested in reading on. So an overview of the process, the brainstorming, all that stuff we talked about in the first presentation, the frames, the patterns, the narrowing out of that stuff you've gathered into something that's going to be meaningful, and then the drafting of the sketch. Now here's what the actual drafting process will look like, and I'll wrap up before too long, and we'll leave it at that for now. Next week, in the near future, I'll open up a presentation on workshopping this essay as well. Here's how to evaluate the sketch to see if you're on the right track. First of all, look at the frame. Can you answer these questions? What am I trying to show? What's the point of this? Is the sketch focusing on a quality, a personality trait, a belief? Is there something I'm pulling out of this other than just a description of a person? What would you say, this is under theme, if somebody asked you, what do you want readers of your profile to understand? What do you want them to take away from it? That's your theme. Okay, the theme is the underlying unifying factor. I almost said message. It's not really a message. It's the thing that you want them to take away from that profile. Okay. Finally, information-wise, is there information? You've gathered some stuff from interviews. You've seen how it comes together into the sketch. is there additional information you might want to generate, either with a follow-up interview of the person that you're profiling. Better to avoid those if you can, but if you need it, you need it, if they're willing. Or interviewing somebody else around that person. And that is it. At this point, you should be able to start digging in, putting that draft together, look at those model articles that we've read. We'll also be looking, before we get into peer editing, at a student essay that's in your text as well. And the next presentation I will be posting will be getting us ready for the workshop process in the near future.